In this portion, what we're going to discuss is something called half steps and whole steps. The first thing that we're going to want to do is figure out why that we want to do this. What it's going to do is it's going to start to make sense of how the whole instrument comes together. I'm going to reiterate this throughout this lesson. It's going to help you to memorize, and you should memorize what I'm saying here because it's just going to make this so easy. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, however, is going to be just half steps. Okay, this is the easier one to understand. So what a half step is on the instrument is if, for instance, you go to the first fret, like on the first string, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to move one fret up. So if I'm at the first fret, I'm going to be moving to the second fret. So I move from the first fret to the second fret, and that's what you call a half step. Okay? So from the first fret to the second fret is a half step, from the second fret to the third fret is a half step, from the third fret to the fourth fret is a half step, or you're just moving fretwise. One fret, one fret, one fret. The other important thing is it doesn't really matter which way you go. If for instance, you're in a band with me, let's say, and I say, okay, that's a good note, but I need you to move down a half step. You can move this way down the guitar as well. So moving down the guitar by one fret at a time is called half steps. Moving up the guitar by one fret at a time is called a half step. People talk about this pretty regularly. There's even tunings that involve half steps, and we won't get into that crazy stuff right now. So the first thing to recognize is also that there are 12 half steps on your guitar. So once again, this double dot comes into effect as the last step of 12 possible half steps, which we'll be discussing in just one moment. So you get 12 half steps equal your entire guitar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a chart right now to help you understand this a little more simply. Okay, in this section we're going to be talking about, as you can see, half steps versus whole steps. What that relates to is letter names of all of the musical notes or names that they give the sounds on any and all instruments. So this is a musical thing as well as a guitar thing. So the first thing that we have to recognize here is that there's only 12 notes. So you can see 1 through 12, and then it just repeats over and over again. Realistically, if you look even closer at this, looking at the letter names, there's actually only 7 different notes. There's a B, a C, a D, E, F, and a G. Okay, so this isn't actually as scary as it looks. You already know all of those letters from a normal alphabet. Then you will only have to recognize that there's a couple of things in between some of these with this little sign here, which is called a sharp sign. Okay, so what's actually happening here is the first note is considered to be just A, the second note is A sharp, the third note is a B note, fourth note is C, fifth note is C sharp, sixth note is D, seventh note is D sharp, eighth note is E, ninth note is F, 10 is F sharp, 11 is G, and 12 is G sharp. So to make this much more simple to memorize, what you're going to want to do is realize once again it only goes A to G, and everything has a sharp except the B note and the E note. So once again, A to G, everything is sharp except B and E. Okay, so once again, that's a memorization thing, so pin that down right away. The next thing we're going to talk about is the relationship from note to note to note. As you can see here, they're called half steps. So moving from an A note to an A sharp is called a half step. We'll apply this to the instrument in just a minute. Moving from an A sharp to a B is also a half step. Moving from a B note to a C is a half step, and so on and so forth. C to C sharp is a half step. C sharp to D is a half step, D to D sharp to E, E to F to F sharp, so on and so forth. And that continues forever and ever. Okay? So then we move up, and if you put 2 and 2 together, 2 half steps will equal what's called 1 whole step. So a whole step, for instance, would be from A to B. So you can see you're skipping, you're putting 2 half steps together. So your first half step is A to A sharp, then A sharp to B, or A to A sharp is a half, and another half is a B note. So A to B is 1 whole step. B, a half step from B is C, and a half step from C is C sharp. So B to C sharp is yet again another whole step. Another whole step is C sharp to D sharp. So basically any place that you can start here, you just move 2 half steps away from the note that you start on. So for instance, over here we have an F, a half step from there is an F sharp, half step from there is a G. So F to G is 1 whole step. Okay? So what's the value of knowing this at all? Well, number one, it's going to make it much more simple to memorize different songs or different scales or different chords on your instrument. The guitar doesn't lay out very nicely as maybe a piano or some other instruments lay out a little more clearly. So you'll have to learn to see these relationships on the guitar, and it's just going to help with memorization, like I said. And that's how everything in Western music pretty much works, in half steps and whole steps. So hope you got this pretty clearly. Memorization once again. Here we go.